Okay, I'm finally back out here working on this Arbor walkway again after a couple weeks of working on a project inside, a couple projects inside. And yesterday I was able to decide how I was going to go about this, because at first I just had the two beams on either side, and then I wanted to connect them somehow to obviously strengthen the structure, and also give it some kind of additional design. And what I decided was to add this middle beam so that there's 3 beams, and that way I was able to get these additional supports in here and space them evenly, so it also adds to the overall design. And once the kind of support structure is done, then I'll have the top pieces that will go lay on top of the overall structure. And so once I got to this point, I stopped here for the day, and it's just nice to actually remove some of this temporary bracing to see what it will actually somewhat look like when it's all done. So I stopped here for the day yesterday, and I had to decide how I was going to tie in the next section, so I have that beam coming off in the middle, and if I just had one beam spanning this length, then obviously I would have to either offset it, and I wanted to kind of have some strength to it, so I didn't want to just like let it sit there or miter it and attach some, and just adhere it to that beam there. So what I decided, and I was able to do this because with the recycled material that I have, that I've been using, I've got these guys. So these are almost just about 16-foot 2x8s. And so my idea was, from this point going forward, those two 2x8s are going to sit on either side, and then basically sandwich this singular beam in. And luckily that length was enough so that I'll be able to actually run those beams all the way across, and they will finish off right here and rest there. And what that does is that, for just like on that section down there, on this section I'll have a single beam that's sandwiched in between the 16-footers, and it'll run this span off to the end. And so that makes it so it's going to be a pretty clean install, and it's going to look good. It's going to match with the other side. So that kind of solved that debacle. And thankfully it was because I remember that I had those 2x6, or those 16-foot 2x8s, and I had enough. I've got plenty, but they're at the bottom of a lumber pile. So part of the day yesterday and this morning was trying to get at them, and I just gave them a rough sand, as I've been rough sanding as I go. Kind of since I finished this section, I ended up rough sanding the 4x4s, and they look really good. It kind of gives them that rough, rustic look. And so overall I'm pretty happy how things are going. And this temporary bracing, it's not really needed, but I'm just keeping it as I work my way down, and kind of just like I removed all that stuff there, as I work my way this way and I start tying things in up here, this will eventually get taken down, which is awesome, because just to get to this point where we're getting to the point where this is what it will be like to kind of go in and out, in between, underneath the Arbor walkway, all the surrounding kind of planters and things, and it still keeps everything pretty much open without necessarily things getting in the way. There's still plenty of room to walk in between here, so no worries there. And so I'm just gonna keep on making progress, and I'm gonna get some shots of getting these 16-footers up just to add to the mix of what I've documented. So it's good to be back. I think most of this week I will be able to work on this. Today's Tuesday, so I've got the rest of today and then tomorrow, see how far I can get. And I think I'm done with a lot of the projects inside, so I'll be able to continue working on this stuff outside. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. At least got it sandwiched up there. So that's kind of how it will look. Obviously the gap in between will be spaced accordingly. I'm gonna put just a 3.5 inch section of 2x8 right there, just to maintain that spacing. That way it kind of looks the same all the way down the line, and then eventually I'll close this gap. So I mean, but it just goes to show you that this was a perfect solution, because that beam is going to be right there on the edge, and the full weight of both of those 2x8s is, I mean, directly, let's get up here, is directly on this 4x4. So just really good as far as carrying the load. You know, no issues there. So from here, I'm going to cut that piece, get it installed as a spacer, and then head down there, close that gap, and figure out, make sure I'm all centered, and be one step closer. Well, you know what? It's a good thing I'm looking from down here, because if you can see, there's a pretty solid gap. So the one thing about working with recycled and reclaimed materials, this pressure treated lumber is about just about 4.5 years old, maybe, I think. And so it's got the twists in it, it's got, you know, the bows and all that stuff. So I need to figure out what I want to do to alleviate that. And also, like, you know, there's humps. You can see how much this got a crown on this 4x4, and so obviously that's the way you would want to install this one. You wouldn't want the crown going down like that, or else it would just get worse over time. This is good because the weight, it's not really going to do anything, because this isn't a ton of weight, but you want anything heavy to, if anything, push down on this and maybe make it more square, make it more level. So I'm gonna figure out, I could always flip the boards the other way. One thing I did was, you can see, because it's reclaimed and this was initially supporting for a deck, you can see all the screw holes from the decking, and I wanted to keep that at the bottom so water wouldn't pool in it and kind of quicken the kind of how wood rots out. I mean, this is pressure treated, it'll last a lot longer, but it's not gonna last forever. So I got some options. This doesn't necessarily need to rest on that beam, on that 4x4. Let's see what happens when I put weight on it. Yeah, I mean, it's not. So I can either flip this board around, but then I've got the screw holes up top, which will just kind of take the water. So I'll make a decision and kind of go from there. Well, this is another reason why clamps are always your best friend, especially when you're doing a lot of solo projects, because I just use one of these larger clamps to actually pull everything down. So it's now resting on this beam, and how I'm actually going to tie this into this 4x4 is just toe screwing directly into it probably a couple of times, and so now it's resting on this beam, and it'll look a whole lot cleaner. And that's pretty much that. You know, it's kind of just problem solving as you go. And so yeah, I'm gonna toe screw that in, and it'll be secured to this 4x4.